Okay, we are back for another episode of Embrace Your Brand, and I have a lovely guest on here today, Akemi-Joi, and I've got to know you through a mutual friend and just love your mission that you're on with coaching. And so I'm just going to let you introduce yourself and explain what it is that you do and how you serve and what your mission is. So thank you so much, Akemi, for being here.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for inviting me. So, as you said, I'm Akemi-Joi, and I am a therapist and a life coach. And I help women who are struggling with anxiety. I call myself the little pocket size, best BFF in your pocket. But I help women who are struggling with anxiety, women who are finding their purpose in life, women who are feeling stuck or just need that help to get to the next level of their lives. So, I have my own personal journey that I kind of went through and find my own personal development that I went through. So now I just give back and help as many women as I can.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I feel like I've talked to a lot of people. And that's just this recurring theme. We typically go through something, and once we've kind of overcome and we see just how much, that personal development or whatever it is changed our lives, we're like, oh, I can't wait for others to experience that. And
Right.
I sense that about you. If you're like, I want people to know what this transformation has been like, and you help them. What are some of the ways that you help women to kind of get through this and start, living lives more fully?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the drawing board and really identifying the purpose.
Mhm.
We all have a purpose in our life, a God-given purpose. And I think sometimes we live in a noisy world where that purpose sometimes get lost in just life, right?
Mhm.
So one thing or the first thing I do is we talk about, well, what is the purpose? What are we doing this for? And a lot of women, say, well, I know God has a plan for me, or I know I need to do these things, but I just don't know what it is. Okay, well, let's figure that out. Where are
Yeah.
we going? What are some of the things that are important for you to do? What's your mission? What do you want to give back to this life? And then once we identify that, then we kind of sift out, I call the weeds of all the negative thinking and the self sabotage that we do that prevents us from getting to that next level.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I love
Mhm.
that, you have this very faith-based approach to it. And I love that about you and appreciate that. And I think that that's so necessary because that's something that I look into with my own journey of there's times where I get overwhelmed, like we were talking about the noise of just
Right.
everything that everybody else is doing. And some of us I think are a little bit more, I don't know, open and persuaded by some of those messages. And then there may be
Mhm.
some who are very like, I know my path, I know which way I'm going. And for those of us
Right.
like me who are like, I see all the different things going on, and I know that there are great opportunities and ways to give back, to serve, to really find those fulfilling things. But there's only going to be a few things that are really going to work for us individually. And so, when
Right.
you help women to figure that out,
Right. Yeah,
it happens so much faster when you have somebody helping you figure that out
it
than
does.
doing it on your own. I remember the time in my life where I was doing it on my own and I'm like, "Ah, I don't know. I still have so many options."
Right.
And so having someone to, ask you the right questions, kind of give you that guidance, it's so helpful
Yeah.
in understanding that. And two, going to God for those
Mhm.
questions and try to get
Mhm.
those answers. And sometimes it's loud and clear. Sometimes it's like you're not ready for that yet. You still have
Mhm.
something to go through before you're
Yes.
going to understand what that mission and service really is.
Absolutely. I always tell people that God has 3 answers. He'll say yes, no, or not yet.
Yeah.
And we have to be at the place to where we're ready to accept that and either finish doing the work that we have to do in order to get, the promises because they're already there. And a lot of times I tell my clients, I joke with them and I say, "Look, we're not, God's not the problem. We're the problem, right?"
Yeah.
So we have to go through these things and then just trust that his will be done in our lives. So you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think just this morning I put a post on Facebook that was to the effect of like, I wish I could quote it, exactly verbatim how I posted it, but to the effect of, God has a plan and he's going to see us through in that plan. We just have to, like, he doesn't show us the entire path.
Mhm.
He shows us just enough for us to
Right.
take a step forward. and
Yes.
trust that he's got us,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's really hard because we're like, I can't see any further than this. And it's so hard to just know that he's got you. But at the same time, I think it's even more helpful when we look back and we reflect. Because for myself, I can look back on moments and think that was really tough, or that was a really hard moment. And I wonder, how did I come through that? How did I get over that? And I realized God showed me the pieces I needed to see and helped
Right.
me to understand things as I needed to so that I could get through it. And now I see it completely different. I see
Right.
it as, oh, those were learning steps. Those were learning curves. They weren't failures. They were just moments where God still needed me to grow and to show me something. And that's just powerful when you can look back and realize that about the things that you've been through. Like, you're not,
Right.
God's timing's perfect. You're not late for
Perfect.
your purpose.
Right.
You're not late
Right.
for it.
Right. And that's what I always tell women, because I get, oh, I'm too old, or, I'm in my 40s, or oh, it's too late. And I said, late according to who?
Yeah.
Your self-imposed deadlines?
Yeah.
Or are we really going to trust that, what? Maybe God has me here for this season to
Yeah.
grow me so that when the things happen in my future, I can look back and say, oh, I had to learn this in order to get to this. Or I would get to this level and completely just mess it up
Yeah.
because I wouldn't have learned the lessons. So, I talk a lot about just trusting the process, trusting that our journeys are exactly where the path that we've taken are exactly the paths that we need. And they're
Yeah.
not going to look like our friends or family members or everybody else, but we have to trust that this is the path that I'm on. These are the lessons that I've had to learn,
Mhm.
and it's going to be okay,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know? And I
exactly. And
think,
I
yeah.
feel like this is even one of the things that got me
Mhm.
into wanting to do this podcast and naming this podcast Embrace Your Brand. It's
Mhm.
basically like a metaphor for just embracing your life.
Mhm.
As you're building a business, as you're serving somebody, you've been through all of these things that you have that in your past because you needed to. You needed to go through those exact things. You needed to learn those exact lessons because now you're able to take those and to use them as a tool to help someone else in some form or fashion. It's like we kind of doubt, I think, some things about ourselves and like, oh, well, I'm not perfect. I've been through all these things, or like you said, the women you work with are like, I think I'm too old for this. I should have already been doing stuff like this. And like, that's our thoughts. Those are
Mhm.
our opinions. But
Yeah.
I've even had to be reminded of this from other friends. Are like, you're exactly where you're at and done the things you've done because that's what was supposed to happen. Take what you've learned, take what you've done, talk about it. That's
Mm.
your story. That's how you impact people. That's how you inspire people. That's how you share your knowledge and your gift with the world.
Right.
And, you're helping women to kind of figure that out and see that for themselves. Like, I have read countless stories
Mhm.
of people who were well advanced in their life before they did that successful thing that they're known for. That doesn't
Right.
mean the earlier years of their life weren't valuable. They're still valuable because they learned the things they needed to learn. They did the things that they needed to do. They
Mhm.
bloomed where they were planted at that moment, at that time,
Right.
so that later on they could do those other things, you know? And I
Absolutely.
feel that that's important. You're never kind of at the wrong place at the wrong time. There's something in each moment that you're meant to learn, meant to do, people you're meant to impact. So it's all got purpose.
Absolutely. And at the right time. I think that's the hardest thing, like you said, is just trusting it, but knowing that God knows way more than we do, you
Yes.
know, and just really trusting that the path that we're on, that is the right path, that is going to lead us
Mhm.
to the results in everything that we want.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
just to making that peace and understanding of like everything I've been through has purpose. If I can just be
Yes.
grateful and honor all of that, then it makes the
Mhm.
steps you're taking today, tomorrow, and in the future so much greater because you're
Yeah.
not looking back thinking, why did I do all this stuff? Or
Mhm.
regretting things you did or did not do. You're
Mhm.
just, you're giving it that gratitude that it needs because it's got you where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love gratitude. I do my gratitudes every day. That is so important because it grounds you. Because it's so easy to get stuck in everything that doesn't work or everything that failed or
Mhm.
everything that sucks and all of that. But that gratitude just kind of grounds you and keeps things in perspective that, you know what? I'm grateful for this opportunity. I may not be where I desire to be, but I'm grateful that I'm here right now because that means I still have a chance. I still have breath. I still have life to keep moving forward to get where I desire to be because I'm on the right road. I always tell people there are times in my life where I told my husband, for example, if I would have met him 10 years before, we got married, there's no way, we could have been, together 10 years later. So, I told him, I just had to trust God's timing because if I'd have met him earlier, our relationship would have been garbage because I wasn't ready and I wasn't in the right. So I had to kiss a few frogs, to find him. But now I realize that all of those things were in the making to get
Yeah.
me to where I was ready and prepared to be a wife when I met him. So all of that to say, just trusting the process of life, recognizing that there is no failures. It's all growth. It's all part of the process. It's all part of the lessons. We either um, learn or we grow from it. There's
Yeah.
no failures, you know?
Yeah. I love that. I was listening to a little talk today, and the guy that was talking said something about I don't like this term of, there's something about there's no failures per se. And his analogy of it, or his perspective of it, was that failures are a good thing because
Hmm.
they're growth moments,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
like you're talking about, it's like there really are no failures. There's just that was an opportunity for growth.
For
There's
growth,
an
for
opportunity for you
learning.
to learn something there. We just coin it as failures because we're
Hmm.
like, it didn't work. It didn't succeed. Oh, it worked. It succeeded in its
Right.
purpose. It
Yeah.
just wasn't meeting our expectation
Yes.
of what we thought should happen, and that's easy to get caught up in so frequently. And sometimes I believe we do that without even realizing that we've set these expectations for ourselves and we're calling these, you know, quotas that aren't being met failures. And that does something, I believe, to our subconscious where
Oh, absolutely.
we're training ourselves like I'm just a failure. Nothing's working out for me. And it's like, no, 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 no. If we could reframe those as this is a growth period. I'm going through growth. Things
Hmm.
that are thriving are growing
Hmm.
every single day. And that's what
Right.
we're doing, right?
Right. Yeah. It reminds me of the quote by Michael Jordan, and it says
Mhm.
something along the lines of I miss X amount of shots and I miss this game winning um shot and I fails and I fails and I fails and that's why I succeeded.
Yeah.
You know, so we need these failures, these learning lessons, so that we learned, okay, I did it this way last time. Oh, that didn't work. So now I need to learn how to do it another way because everybody in life has to grow. Says nobody comes and does it right 100% of the time perfect, you know?
Yeah.
We have to learn, oh, I did it this way and this way didn't work. So now I'm going to do it this way. And just trusting that these are the lessons that we have to just learn. And I think it also gives us an opportunity to trust God to say, I don't know. I can't see. I don't know how this is going to look or whatever, but you know what? I just have to trust that you're going to be that guide to get me to where I want to be. You're going to be that center that I have to trust when the world is saying, "Oh, you have to do this, or oh, you have to do that." You can really just depend on source, God, faith, whatever it is to get you to that next step, and trust that in the end, and I can say this with everybody with 100% certainty, that it always works out either way because it has to, because here we stand. So we just have to trust the process.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
as you were talking, I feel like so many different passages and verses were just popping up in my mind of like to everything there's a season, there's a
There's a
time for this, there's a
season, a
time for the exact
time.
opposite
Yes.
of that, and how much more valuable we are than the sparrows of like, don't be anxious about these things. Don't worry. God is going to take care of you in those things. And he's working these things out for our good we just don't
Yeah.
always see it. Like, how is this good for me? But it is.
Mhm.
And, it's such a beautiful thing when you really begin to just take this knowledge in of just how much God is paying attention to our lives and really working things out for us. And it requires our trust on a day by day basis, sometimes an hour by hour basis, because, like when we're in the thick of it and we're like, I don't know how this is going to work, we have to, I believe, release understanding how, because
Mhm.
God works in those mysterious ways that we just cannot understand or fathom or figure out sometimes until maybe even later down the road, or sometimes we never do. But it's important to have
Yeah.
that faith aspect. And I did want to ask you about something because we kind of alluded to this prior to hitting the record. Uh,
Okay.
but I want to hear about like your journey in helping women and embracing the way you're doing business. Because you said that you kind of pivoted from being in the social media space with Instagram and Facebook
Mhm.
and are gearing more towards LinkedIn, and that was something that you felt was more in alignment with you and how you wanted to work. So kind of allude on that if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of times in life, because the noisy world that we live in, everybody is the guru. Everybody has the step by step. Everybody has the get rich quick, do this, and I'm
Mhm.
guaranteeing you this and this. And we do these things. And what happened, it just doesn't resonate. So I fell into the same trap, oh, I can take you here. I can get you a million clients if you just do the things. And it just didn't feel well for me. So it didn't work.
Mhm.
So what I had to do is I had to realize that I was, and I always tell people it's hard for me to have a conversation without putting God into it because he's really the center of everything that I do. But I really had to say, okay, God, these things don't work. I know that you put this desire in me to help your women, to help your people. God, how can I do this? Like I'm doing the things, it doesn't feel good. And I had to really sit still. And what I heard in my spirit is, I never told you to do that. Like you did that on your own, you
Yeah.
know? So when I really got quiet in my spirit and I realized, like, gosh, this is not, it doesn't feel good because it's not for me. It
Mhm.
works for them and what they did, but that's not who I created you to be. That's not how I want you to get your clients. So once I really shut down the noise of the world and what everybody else thought I should do,
Mhm.
I realized that what I have to do is what's in alignment and what feels good with and for me. And
Mhm.
then it seemed like things just started revealing themselves. I got an opportunity to work with a coach on LinkedIn, and things just started taking off. And and I have a funny relationship with God because I was like, okay, God, I hear you. Okay, you were right. I was wrong. you
Yeah.
know, and that's one thing that I try to help women do too, and not necessarily just women, but anybody, is to trust that intuition, because that's a higher faculty that God gives us that a lot of times we ignore because we're looking for external, other people, do this, let me show you this. And, I can show you how to market, how to brand, how to do all the things and get you everything that you want. And we really discount, and God is saying, like, he gives us free will. So he was kind of sitting back saying, okay, do it your way,
Yeah.
So when I really got in alignment with what felt good for me, that's when I started my YouTube channel on meditations, pep talks, and prayers. And what I found was, over the years, I've always heard people say, of course, because of it was on me, I didn't like it. Like, oh, you have such a nice voice. You have a soothing voice. My clients used to tell me, oh, you make me feel at ease just with my voice. And then it just started to fall into place where it's just like, gosh, my pep talks, my prayers, my daily prayers, things that I can record that people can just tune into. And then, these things again started to get things in order, so where I didn't even have to pay for the software or do all the things to start the channel. So all in all, to wrap that up, it's about following that intuition, trusting that, I always tell people that God is my algorithm. I don't need the algorithm. I don't need what everybody else thinks I should do, but I'm going to trust that I'm doing it this way. So if I get I call them little divine nuggets that, God puts on us at any time, I'll write those down. So I don't have necessarily a social media calendar, but it's more like, okay, God, what do your people need to hear today? All
Mhm.
right, they need to know this. All right, I'm going to write it up and I'm going to put it out there. And then, my post started taking off. So just following that intuition for me took my business from where I was kind of struggling to get clients and I don't know how I'm going to get the next one to, women are in my inbox. Akimi, how can you help me? These are things I'm struggling with. The client starting to like, I want to work with you. What do I have to do? Jumping on my calendar. And I just think if we all just really do that, and I really got serious with my meditation at that time too, because prayer is good. We're going to God, we're praising God, we're thanking God, we're asking God. But I think in that meditative time is, prayer is the output, but my meditation time is the input, what God is putting into me, those divine thoughts, those tokens, those nuggets that can help me. So I always tell women, I'm not the smartest person in the world. Like, I really don't know much, but I tap into that infinite source, so I may not know what's going on with you, but if I hear God say, oh, yeah, this woman needs to work on this. No, she has a problem leading back to her childhood. And then, I see things happening because it's like, well, how did you know that? And I'm just like, look, I tap into that knowledge.
Yeah.
So that was a long way of saying, just trusting that intuition and just trusting the divine because we have everything within us. We just have to be diligent about tuning out the noise of the world and everything that's happening, shut all of that out and get back to the center. All right, God, what do you want me to do?
Yeah. Yeah. I
And then
love
be
that. I know
obedient.
that was a long way of answering the question, but it was so
Sorry.
beautiful. It's perfect. I'm like, I'm just taking all this and I'm like, this is such good stuff. And it's so relevant that we need to hear this and we need to hear it often because it's amazing how quickly, like from day to day, week to week, that we're like, oh, I haven't prayed about this. I haven't even meditated on it. I haven't just kind of got quiet, and let these things come to me. I mean, God said, be still
Be
and know.
still and
I'm like,
know that I
oh,
am God. Yes.
simple words, just be
Yes.
still
Be
and,
still.
and know I'm God. I've got
Mhm.
you,
Mhm.
and I love your phrase. I'm like, you should so coin this phrase of God is my algorithm. I absolutely love that.
Yes, algorithm.
Like, that's going to be like, who knows? Maybe the title of this podcast. I don't know. It's like God is my algorithm. I love that. Uh,
Mhm.
but I mean, it's so
Yeah.
true. I think, I never was one for the whole algorithm thing. I just felt like, okay, yes, there's stuff with technology, but I'm like, technology is faulty on a regular basis. And a lot of times algorithms are pushed for a certain agenda. And I'm like, but you make a point that God has a greater agenda. God is going to bring you the right people. I literally had a girl reach out to me. She's like, we're in the same group, and I read your introduction in this group, and just something about it told me I needed to talk with you. She's like, I just felt this nudge, like maybe God was telling me like I just need to reach out to her and say hi and kind of get to know her. And we've just exchanged some, getting to know each other, and then we've exchanged work with each other. She's kind of helping me with some energetic stuff. I'm helping her with strategizing her business. I'm like, this has been a really good exchange. Like God knew that we needed to come together and to help each other out where we're at right now. And so that's been such a wonderful thing. And like you're talking about, the women are coming to you and they're asking you, how can you help me? And I think it is very interesting that you brought up the fact of like, I don't know the answers, not all the answers, but you rely
Yeah.
on God being that source for
Mhm.
you. And
Mhm.
there's even times that I'll be just listening to a client talk about stuff. And then I never know exactly what I'm going to say for
Mhm.
something, or when ideas suddenly pop into my head, but then I'm just like, well, what about this? Or what about that? I stopped in to visit a friend one day and just to give her
Mhm.
something, and she was talking about a project, and she's like, well, if we could just find some ways to better
Thank you.
utilize promoting this. And so I just rattled off a few things. It just immediately popped in my head. She's like, you are so smart. She's like, what would I do without you? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't really know where that came from. I'm like, I think I get God downloads because I'm
Right.
there
Yeah.
was no intention of that when I stopped in to see you, but that has just come out. She's like, I just love that. I'm like, I'm not gonna take credit. So not gonna take credit for this. I'm like, God's, it reminds me of Moses, when Moses was like, I'm not a good speaker. I can't lead people." And God's like, "I'll give you the words. I will tell
Mhm.
you what to do. I will tell you what to
Yeah.
speak. You will know these things when the opportunity is there." I still believe he works in those ways,
Mhm.
even today with people like you and me and
Mhm.
others, that
Yeah.
if we just are still and we're quiet and we trust that and we lean on that, that the answers are going to come, the opportunities are going to come, because then we're so open to God using us
Yeah.
to accomplish his
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. And for me, it's a release too. Like I physically, I release my will, my ways, my thoughts, anything that's blocking me. It's really that release in it too. And I release and allow, so that, because in our own brain, it has to make sense. Like, oh, I have to do this or I have to do that. And, but then, and again, I tell you, I have the relationship with God. He'd be like, all right, well, do it your way, you know, you know?
Yeah.
So just by me releasing and allowing, I noticed things started changing and shifting, and where I felt like I was, doing all the things and running on the, the rat, wheel and all of that stuff. Things was just like, okay, you know, I don't want just anybody. I want the right person, So God,
Mhm.
who do you need me to speak to? Who do you need me to hear? Even with, this conversation we have, who needs to hear this?
Yeah.
Who has been struggling with these things that needs me to, to hear these words from our podcast and this conversation, and that's my prayer and everything that I do, that is pleasing to God, and that his will be done.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
Well, this is like the perfect end to just wrap up this podcast episode. And I just want to thank you so much, Akimi,
Absolutely.
for being on this episode with me and being my guest, but even more so for just what you're doing in the lives of women and also how you're being so open to how God wants to use you, to use your gift, your talent, your ability to serve other women and to just make a difference, make an
Absolutely.
impact. That's I really want to just thank you for doing
Yeah.
that, for embracing who you are and for loving what you do and just seeing how it's impacted your life and you're like, I got to pay this forward. This is what God made me to do. So, thank you so much and there will be the links to find you in the show notes. So anyone who hears this and their heart is touched, like, okay, I need to go and get in Akimi's world. They'll know where to find you. They'll know how to go to
Yes.
your YouTube and listen to some of your meditations and all of that stuff. Because I definitely want to support you and make sure people can find you and be uplifted by you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I truly enjoyed this opportunity. Thank
Thank
you.
you.